Welcome to another exciting message from America's pace-setting life coach, Dr. Dave Williams. After more than 30 years of leading a flourishing church and overseeing the establishment of over 500 growing daughter churches in America, Africa, and Asia, he has the first-hand experience that will help you succeed and be fruitful in your life's calling, whether in ministry or marketplace. Dave Williams is a teacher, coach, and trainer to successful pace-setting leaders. And now, here's Dr. Dave Williams.
This is the earth-shaking, legendary.
You've seen it and I've seen it. Person just snags the dream job they've always wanted, prayed for. 5 months later, they blow it. Saul was king. He sabotaged his kingship and lost it. Judas Iscariot was chosen to be a disciple, an apostle. And he sabotaged his ministry. Demas, Ahithophel, Cain sabotaged his future. The children of Israel, over and over and over again, we read how they sabotaged their lives. And in this series, we're talking about self-sabotage. It's when we work and act against our own best interests, even when we don't realize we're doing it. We have no idea why we sabotage our careers, our relationships, our finances, our success, our future. We have no idea why. I'm trying to show you over the course of these weeks why some people sabotage their lives. Self-sabotage always leads to failure, but it's not normal failure. It's repeated failure over and over again. The pattern in life goes on and on and on and on if we don't get these spikes back in the rail so the train of our life can go over successfully. The word sabotage comes from actually a French word. Sabot or sabot was a wooden shoe, and when factory workers were upset at management, they'd throw a wooden shoe in the machinery and it would clog it up and the factory would shut down. That's where we got the term sabotage. There are days when we wonder why we've done what we've done. What are we doing to ourselves? Why did we wreck that day? And we sympathize with the person who wrote the sign that reads, "When the day is over, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I've earned it, I deserve it, and no one's going to deprive me of it." Self-sabotage is an inner monster. And just before we go to our scripture, I want to read from an article by Kristen Dyer, which interestingly is entitled, "How to Sabotage Yourself." Isn't it interesting how you're thinking about buying a certain car and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, that type of car? Well, I'm talking about self-sabotage, and all of a sudden I'm reading along, and here's an article on how to sabotage yourself I read this week. Here's what Kristen Dyer says on how to sabotage yourself. Whenever you meet an attractive new person of the opposite sex, be sure to talk at length about all your problems. Use credit cards to pay for everything. When a credit card stops working, apply for another one. Always look ticked off or upset when you're at work. You want to make sure everyone knows how much you hate your job. Take up a new hobby, drinking. If anything makes you really happy, tell everyone how you will probably never be that happy again. Gossip about friends and family members, and make sure to gossip with friends and or family members of the person you're gossiping about. Always talk about your horrible day at work whenever you get the chance. And here's one. Remember, you're not the only one with flaws, so make sure to always point out everyone else's flaws as well. Feed your hunger for love and companionship with cake and cookies. Try smoking some crack to ease your pain. Always wear a frown wherever you go. You want to try to make it a permanent expression on your face. Borrow money from family and friends, or friends and family, and never pay it back. Quit your job to become a full-time professional internet poker player. And if you ever have children, give them funny names like Crystal Shonda. If your last name is Lear, Crystal Shonda. Or any of the names Frank Zappa gave his kids like Dweezil and Moon Unit. You want to make sure to pass on your bad luck to your kids. That's her take on self-sabotage. Good points. Albeit sarcastic. We talked about 11 things so far that sabotage your life. Today, I want to look at number 12, which is confusing stuff with success. Don't confuse stuff with success. My text is Luke 12, 15 to 34, so we've got some reading to do here from the Message Bible. This is Jesus. Speaking to the people, he went on, "Take care. Protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot." Then he told them this story. The farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. He talked to himself, "What can I do? My barn isn't big enough for this harvest." Then he said, "Here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll gather in all my grain and goods, and I'll say to myself, 'Self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life.'" Just then God showed up and said, "Fool, tonight you die. And your barn full of goods, who gets it?" 21. That's what happens when you fill your barns with self and not with God. And he continued this subject with his disciples. Don't fuss about what's on the table at meal times, or if the clothes in your closet are in fashion. There's far more to your inner life than the food you put in your stomach, more to your outer appearance than the clothes you hang on your body. Look at the ravens, free and unfettered, not tied down to a job description. Carefree in the care of God, and you count far more. Has anyone by fussing before the mirror ever gotten taller by so much as an inch? If fussing can't even do that, why fuss at all? Walk in the fields, look on the wildflowers. They don't fuss with their appearance. But have you ever seen color and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the wildflowers, most of them never even seen, don't you think he'll attend to you, take pride in you, do his best for you? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax. Not be so preoccupied with getting so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way he works fuss over these things, but you know both God and how he works. Steep yourself in God reality, God initiative, God provisions, and you'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Don't be afraid of missing out. You're my dearest friends. The Father wants to give you the very kingdom itself. Be generous. Give to the poor. Get yourselves a bank that can't go bankrupt. A bank in heaven, far from bank robbers, safe from embezzlers. A bank you can bank on. It's obvious, isn't it? The place where your treasure is the place you will most want to be and end up being. Life is not defined, Jesus said, by what you have, even when you have a lot. One of the biggest self-sabotaging tools of the enemy that he uses to get us to self-sabotage is confusing stuff with success. Jesus illustrated it when he told about the farmer. He was probably a good man. It doesn't say he was a wicked man. He was probably a good provider. Honey, I'm going to be home late tonight because I'm working late. He was a farming entrepreneur. He had a business going. He worked hard. He probably had employees. He probably felt like he was being a good provider for his family. All the overtime, because he seemed to confuse stuff with success. One day when he finally thought he had enough, he said, "Yeah, now I'm going to store it away in barns and I'll be able to retire." And just then God said, no, your time is up. This is the day you were scheduled to die. And he was probably saying, no, not today. I've worked hard for 40 years to get to where I am today. Your wife was lonely for 40 years for you. Your children didn't even know who you were for 40 years. Just give me some more time. 10, 9, 8. I just need some more time. I'll give to the poor. I'll start focusing on what's important. I'll put God first. 7, 6, 5, 4. Please, a little more time. 3, 2, 1. It's over. Confusing stuff with success. I've seen this trap over and over and over again, how the devil gets people to sabotage themselves by thinking stuff is equivalent to success. Jesus said, so shall it be with everyone who is rich in things but not rich toward God. Now I want you to know, I fully believe God wants you to have wealth, prosperity, good things. But he wants you to first be rich toward him. This is what Jesus said. Now we're all blitzed with countless reminders every day that we need to be more important, we need to be more attractive, we need to have more stuff in order to be more valuable. We're bombarded by advertisements. And one of the greatest temptations in this wonderful land of plenty and this land of opportunity in which we live is to measure our success in terms of dollar signs and in terms of what we have accumulated. I was reading about a recipe book that had to be recalled. It was recalled because there was a mistake in one of the recipes that left out one ingredient. And when people would try to make that recipe, it would blow up in their faces because it was missing that one ingredient. And some recipes for life are like that. They're good on paper, but when the essential ingredient is missing, life blows up in our faces. Don't confuse stuff with success. In a television interview, Barbara Walters asked Ted Turner, the founder of Turner Broadcasting, founded CNN News, TBS. Barbara asked Ted, what does it feel like to be so wealthy? Ted's response, it's like a paper bag. Everyone sees the bag. Everyone wants it. Once you get the bag, you discover that the bag is empty. Don't confuse stuff with success. This is where Solomon sabotaged his life. And he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, one of the most pessimistic books in the Bible. It was when he started confusing the success God gave him with stuff, and stuff with success. 1 Timothy 6:11. Pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. A few years ago, Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's Pizza, experienced a spiritual reawakening. He realized that all of his wealth was not making him happy. So he started selling off his stuff. 3 houses that were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, the Detroit Tigers baseball team, 30 vintage automobiles. One of them was a $13 million Bugatti. And here's what Tom was quoted as saying, none of the things I've bought, and I mean none of them, has ever really made me happy. Life does not consist in the abundance of things. Stuff is not equal with success. I was listening to the PowerPoints the other day and heard about a true story of a young boy that worked in a store. Found $10 on the floor, and boy, he thought what he could do with that $10. Temptation came to him. Well, it's nobody's. How would I ever find out who it belonged to? And the temptation was to take it. Then he thought, no, I work for this man. I'm going to take it down to owner, and the owner was working in the basement. So the guy that worked at the store took the $10 down and said, "I found this on the floor, sir." The guy didn't thank him, just took the $10, grumbled about another employee who probably dropped it out of the cash register, and he received nothing from the boss. But something happened on the inside of him. Something that taught him that character is more important than money. What about this lady that tripped in the furniture store, sued the furniture store, won $80,000, and come to find out it was her child that she tripped over? Is there something to say about the accumulation of stuff or the accumulation of character? What's going to count on that day when God says, "Time's up"? What's going to count? Will it be character or will it be stuff? I remember a couple in church. They were really involved in the church. They were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, pretty involved in the church, but pretty soon they weren't there on Wednesday nights anymore. And then after a little while, they weren't there on Sunday nights anymore. And then it wasn't very long, they weren't there on Sunday mornings anymore. I still remember when he came back to the church and asked if he could give a testimony. He stood up and he said, "I want to repent before this church. My wife and I have been hypocrites." He said, "I was going to be retiring soon, so we were building our cottage up north. And so I'd work on Sunday nights on the cottage, but that wasn't enough time to work on it, so I started working on it all day Saturday and Sunday because we're going to retire. We're already moving our stuff up there, but the cottage wasn't completely finished." He said, "Last week when we drove up there, it had burned to the ground. There was nothing but ashes." And he said, "I haven't been putting God first." He said, "We're putting ourselves first." The same story Jesus gave us today. Life does not consist in the abundance of things. He said, "So it is with anyone who is rich, but not rich toward God." In other words, it's okay to be rich. It's okay to have wealth and prosperity, but the priority is being rich toward God first. Because many times when God begins to bless someone, that someone begins to equate the stuff with success. God's blessings of stuff with success. That's not the success. The success is when we're rich toward God first. Then the stuff has its right place. Somebody put it this way: money will buy a bed but not sleep, food but not appetite, books but not knowledge, medicine but not health, entertainment but not happiness, a house but not a home. Don't confuse stuff with success. A Harvard Medical School psychologist, Stephen Berglas, wrote a book called The Success Syndrome, where he studied people that sabotaged their lives. And he talked with one inside trader who was asked by his wife why he needed the money from insider trading. He really had no answer. He said, "When my income was $100,000, I wanted $200,000. And when it was $200,000, I wanted $400,000. And when my income was $400,000, I wanted it to be $1 million. And after it was $1 million, I wanted it to be $3 million." Oddly enough, people who find that $200,000 didn't make them happy never ask themselves why they thought $300,000 would make them happy. And this psychologist goes on to write about Ivan Boesky, Michael Milk, and Leona Helmsley, and asks the question, what's missing in these people's lives? And here's what he concluded. What's missing in these people's lives is a deep commitment or religious activity that goes far beyond just writing a check to charity. Those were his words. In other words, there was something missing in their lives. Isn't this what Jesus said? So it is with those who are rich in things, but not rich toward God. Lee Atwater, you remember him, political strategist under President Bush the first, died from a brain tumor at the age of 41, 1991. Reflecting on his life just before his death, here's what Lee said. And by the way, he accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior, gave his testimony on the 700 Club, and here's what he said as he neared the end of his life. The 80s were about acquiring wealth, power, prestige, I know. And he said, I acquired more wealth, power, and prestige than most people ever dream of. But you can acquire all you want and still feel empty. What power I wouldn't trade for a little more time with my family. Mr. Atwater learned you can acquire all you want and still feel empty. That's what happens when we confuse stuff with success. You know, it's illegal to be addicted to cocaine or heroin or other drugs. But strangely, addiction to television, shopping malls, outlet malls, the lottery, those are considered to be acceptable addictions. But Jesus said, take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Commandment number 10, thou shalt not covet. And most of us wouldn't call ourselves greedy or covetous. But we find ourselves at times falling into that trap. If I just had a little more, if I just had a little more. When I was writing my book, The Road to Radical Riches, the Lord really helped me and gave me a picture of what happens when people love money, because Paul told Timothy, the love of money is the root of all evil, all evil. And I saw a picture while I was praying over this book, when I was writing this particular chapter, of a big man that looked like a mosquito. And you know, when a mosquito lands on your arm, you don't catch it in time, that little stinger, plunger, straw goes down in your arm and he starts sucking blood out of you, and then the mosquito gets bigger, filled with blood. The Lord showed me a picture of a man that looked like a big mosquito with a straw going down into this cesspool of filth. And he said to me, a root is what draws all the nutrients up into a plant or a tree, some kind of vegetation. And he said, when a person loves money and places such a high priority on it, it's like having a big hose connected to them going right down into the sewer line. Feces, urine, used toilet paper, all coming up into that person's life and getting fatter and fatter and fatter with it, not realizing that all this filth is coming in. Why? Because they confused stuff with success. That goes back to the root. The love of money is the root of all evil. When we confuse stuff with success and we're caught in this covetous trap, it's like having a direct line into the sewer of all evil, and it's being drawn up into us daily till we're getting fat like a mosquito sucking blood out of a person. And so we see how people change. When people change and they start having evil behavior and evil attitudes and all, you can go back. There's going to be something somewhere related to money. The love of money. Don't confuse stuff with success. This is right about in the middle of the list of 21. Right up there with bitterness and unforgiveness that can absolutely entrap and ensnare and sabotage our lives, our future, our relationships, our careers. Years ago, I read a book called The Making of a Leader by Ralph Mahoney, leader of World Map. Mary Jo, you remember Ralph Mahoney because he'd come to Christ for the Nations and speak. And he told about this South American country where it was a fairly poor country, But this group of people found out they could make a deal with this principality called Mammon. Now, when we read you can't serve both God and Mammon, we've usually interpreted that you can't serve God and money too, because you love one, hate the other. And that has a relationship to it, but the Hebrews understood Mammon to be one of Satan's huge generals in the spirit realm, the dark spirit realm. That Mammon actually was the principality that would get people to covet and to get greedy and to confuse stuff with success. And this group of people found out that if they prayed to this demonic creature called Mammon and said, "We'll give you our soul if you'll give us wealth," anyone who did that got wealthy. And oh, they were hot stuff in that town. They'd drive cars, they'd have gold chains. They were hot stuff in that country. But when they got into their 40s, every one of them came down with a disease. A horrible, painful disease. Ralph Mahoney said he saw some of them die, and when they died, worms actually burst out of their bodies, and all of them were screaming to Mammon for more time, more time. Time's up. You sold your soul to the principality of Mammon. And what really tears me up is when I find Christians slowly and subtly selling their soul to the principality of Mammon. And that's what the man in our story did today, Jesus said. He wasn't concerned about the things of God or being rich toward God or concerned about his neighbor, loving God or loving people. He was concerned about his barns, his crop, so he could retire. But God said, no, this is the day. This is the day. Your number is up. So it is with everyone who is rich in things but not rich toward God. Confusing stuff with success. I was intrigued by an article I read. I think it was a Reader's Digest. It was a lady writing about putting, and my mom has these little red things you put out for hummingbirds. Hummingbird feeders. You put sugar water in, and these little hummingbirds will come. And this lady put out a hummingbird feeder, and 4 or 5 hummingbirds would come and eat at the same time. They'd just buzz around that. Every day she had to refill it. There was so many hummingbirds coming. And then she noticed something. For some reason, she didn't have to, the hummingbirds didn't come around. Just one would come around. And she wondered what was going on. She only had to fill it once a week now. And she started watching on her back porch, and she saw this male hummingbird that would come and he'd drink, and whenever another hummingbird would come, he'd chase it away. And the only way any other hummingbird could drink from the hummingbird feeder was if that male was chasing another one away, one could go up and get a little drink. So the only one really drinking from it was that male that took it as ownership, and he became a guard. He actually lost his life. He had to stay right there and guard that hummingbird feeder. And you know the sad story? He became a slave. That hummingbird became, to me it has a spiritual principle. He became a slave by taking ownership of something that didn't belong to him, not allowing others to share in the wealth, so to speak, thinking there's only enough for me, when every day, she would have refilled it twice a day if she had to. There was a supply enough that would last throughout those hummingbirds' lives. But that one greedy, covetous, jealous hummingbird not only robbed the others, but robbed himself of a real life, because now all he could do is guard that. He couldn't go out and enjoy the sights and find other hummingbird feeders. He had to stay right there and guard that. Isn't that kind of how our lives get sometimes? We got to guard our stuff. You know, I read, and I'll probably talk more about this when we get to point 21, if we ever get to point 21 this year, that 75% of the things in our closet we rarely wear. You know what I do? I go through my closet. I say, okay, I only wore this once this year. Chances of me wearing it again probably are slim. Have it dry cleaned, washed or something. Bring it in and give it to anybody that wants it. I probably put out $1,000 or more worth of clothes just in the last few weeks that others are enjoying now. You know what really helps? When you get violent with this spirit, because this is self-sabotage, point number 12, and it's a big one. And Mary Jo will tell you, if I ever feel greed or covetous or trying to grab onto something, I always get violent and I give as big as I can give. Give bigger than I can give. Just say, God, I don't want this as part of my life. Because we can't confuse stuff with success. And you know the people that do that. They're always showing you the latest thing they've got. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we're rich toward God. The Romans had a proverb: money is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Jesus said, take care. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. No covetousness. No wanting more of what you already have enough of, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. I read a great story probably a month ago. I told the story to Mary Jo and she thought it was beautiful. It was about a wealthy father who wanted to teach his son his values. I want to show you, son, our values. So I'm going to take you on a trip to show you how poor people live. So he took his son to spend a couple nights on a farm that was operated by what the dad considered to be poor people. On their return from the trip, the father asked his son, how was the trip? Oh, it was great, Dad. Did you see how poor people live? Oh, yeah, I sure did. So tell me, what did you learn from the trip? Asked the father. And here was the son's answer. Well, I saw that we have one dog and they have 4. We have a pool that reaches to the middle of our garden, but they have a creek that has no end. We have imported lanterns in our garden and they have all the stars at night. Our patio reaches to the front yard, but theirs reaches the whole horizon. We have a small piece of land to live on, and they have fields that go beyond our sight. We have servants who serve us, but they seem to serve others. We buy our food, but they get to grow theirs. We have walls around our property to protect us, but they have friends to protect them. The boy's father was speechless. Then his son added, thanks, Dad, for showing me how poor we really are. Did you know last year, Americans are really generous, but last year, Americans gave $2.9 billion to overseas missions. But they also gave $7.7 million to see movies, $13 billion to buy chocolate, $23 billion to buy toys, $23 billion to buy stuff for their pets, $24 billion for jewelry, $58 billion for soft drinks, $85 billion for lawn and care products, and $354 billion to eat out at restaurants. Life does not consist in the abundance of things. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker, he who dies with the most toys wins? There should be another one, he who dies with the most toys still dies. I wonder how many people have bought into the idea that life really consists in how much we can accumulate. Jesus said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. Don't confuse stuff with success. This is a sabotage spike that'll take your train off the track.
We hope you enjoyed this message. For more information about Dr. Dave Williams or to access the latest resources, please visit www.davewilliams.com. And now, for the entire Dave Williams ministry team, may God bless you richly.
This is the